Hello everyone, welcome to this session. Don't go anywhere, be there. We'll start the session just when all the participants have already. Until then, go through our social media platforms. Share the link in the chat box.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're right.
It's true. Thank you.
Everyone, welcome to this session. We are waiting for participants to join. We will wait for a few more minutes, then we will start the session. Till then, you can go through our social media platforms. I've shared the link in the chat box. Also, our meetup communities. We wait for a few minutes. Till then, you can do that and yeah, start the session in next. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. Wait till other participants join. Hello, am I audible clearly?
Yes, Shubh.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone. I am Shubh Parmar, your host for today's webinar. My team and I are here to make sure you have a seamless and engaging experience. If you have any questions or need assistance, feel free to use the chat window. We're here to help. So the topic for today is generative AI essentials for business and technical decision makers. So today's event is sponsored by Synergetics. Synergetics is a leading edge learning solutions provider in India offering specialized training and consulting services. We empower businesses and professionals to thrive in today's fast evolving tech landscape by delivering transformative learning experiences. Our core focus is on enabling digital transformation through innovative skilling programs, advisory services, and end to end implementation support. From modernizing IT frameworks to mastering emerging technologies like AI, cloud computing, and DevOps, Synergetics is committed to equipping you with the tools and knowledge to succeed. We are thrilled to have Mr. Sonu Satyadas as our today's speaker. He's a certified Microsoft trainer and assistant manager technology at Synergetics. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in AI and cloud technologies. The agenda for this webinar is Introduction to Generative AI and its business value, planning a generative AI project, building a generative AI ready organization, and taking action. We run communities on Meetup. This is the emerging technology community. Anyone who are eager to learn about technological knowledge can join this community on Meetup. We have different communities in Pune, Gujarat, Nagpur, and Indore. Those who are interested to join this community, please log into the Meetup app and gain your knowledge for free. Accelerate your cloud journey with our AWS webinar series. Whether you are just getting started or looking to deepen your expertise, a curated webinar series has something for everyone. Launch your tech career with AWS Basics, perfect for beginners, in which understand AWS fundamentals, explore career roles, and kickstart your certification journey. For IT professionals and developers, dive into cloud architecture, migrations, and advanced tools like machine learning and prompt engineering. For data and AI professionals, master data strategies, analytics, and AI essentials that help you stay ahead in a data driven world. For business and technical decision makers, gain clarity on cloud investments, generative AI use cases, and why AWS certification adds strategic value. Join our expert led sessions and future proof your skills with AWS. I would like to take a moment to share some information about the certification workshops we conduct at Synergetics. These webinars you've been attending are designed to give you a brief overview and summary of the full course content. However, the actual certification training programs of these courses run over 4 days, and we are currently offering them at a special discounted rate exclusively for webinar attendees. On my screen, you can see the list of in demand certification courses we are currently focusing on. For more details regarding this, I'll share contact of my colleague, Mr. Vivek Balasundaram. He'll guide you with more details regarding this. All right, everyone, it's time for a quick quiz to make our session a little more interactive and fun. We have 5 questions lined up, and each one will test your knowledge of today's topic. So don't worry, it's all about learning. So think of this as a chance to check how much you have picked up already. Okay, let's go. So you can see the question: what is the primary capability of generative AI? If 4 options, just quickly drop your answers in the chat box, and after a minute I'll give you my answer here itself. Quickly drop your answers in the chat box. Let's see. I see only 2 of them have answered till now. Everyone, I can see 24 attendees. Just 2 of them have answered it yet. So yes, the correct answer is B, generating new content such as text, images, or code. Go to the next question. Which of the following is a common business use case for generative AI? Quickly drop your answers, guys. Yes, B is the correct answer. Chatbots for customer service is the right answer. So next question. In decision making, how can generative AI provide value? Quickly drop your answers, guys, in the chat box. Mm, yes, B is the right answer. The answer is by generating insights, summaries, and recommendations from large data sets. We'll jump to the next question. Which Microsoft service enables organizations to integrate generative AI into their workflows? Proper answers, guys. Four options. Proper answers quickly. Again, the answer is B, Azure OpenAI service. I see many of you are answering very correctly. That's great. We'll jump to the last question now. Which of the following is a key consideration when adopting generative AI in enterprises? Quickly drop your answers. We have only one correct answer for every question. Quickly drop your answers, guys. Which of the following is a key consideration when adopting generative AI in enterprises? Good going, guys. Yes, again, B is the right answer. It's ethical use, security, and compliance. You guys have been great. To the next slide. So do follow us on our social media platforms to get relevant updates on upcoming webinars, workshops, and certification trainings we do. I've shared the link in the chat box. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Now we'll hand over the mic to a speaker. Sunu sir, you can take over from here.
Okay, thank you, Shubh. So, hello everyone, good evening. I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hello everyone, myself Sonu Satyadas, and I'm the Assistant Manager Technology at Synergetics. So, with over 16 years of experience in cloud and AI, I'm primarily working on the AI concepts on Microsoft and AWS Cloud. So, this session is all about generative AI essentials for business and technical decision makers. In this session, we will discuss primarily about the generative AI and the adoption of generative AI in the organizations. So, in the module one, we will discuss about the introduction to generative AI. So, we will talk about the generative AI concept, and the importance of generative AI. So, what is generative AI? As I know you have already answered this question in the pre session questionnaire. Generative AI is a kind of artificial intelligence that is used to generate some new contents based on the prompt given by the user. So nowadays we are using the generative AI to build the content such as text contents, images, audios, videos, and the application code. We are now using this generative AI services to improve the customer experience, basically while creating the virtual assistants like chatbots, or for creating the personalized content for the customers, moderating the content, and also we can use it for boosting the employees' productivity. Basically, in an organization, if you have a set of developers, we can use a generative AI enabled tools for generating the code for the applications. So you can use the tools like Amazon Q Developer, GitHub Copilot, Code Llama, and many other generative AI tools are available now for developers. But we can even use the other end user products like a ChatGPT, Cloud Desktop, or Mistral, and Gemini kind of AI tools are now available for the end users. We can now create the text as well as the image contents using this end user products. So we can summarize the text, we can create the image and text contents, we can even search the web using this generative AI tools. Now, one of the major invention on this generative AI technology is the agentic AI applications or agentic frameworks, which will allow you to use the tools for connecting to the external data sources such as internet, APIs, databases, file systems, and more. So you can generate the contents even from the external sources, which is not part of the pre-trained model. We can now use the generative AI for creativity as well. So most of the social media contents that we see now is AI generated. We can see lots of videos, images, and even the audio contents we can see that are created using the artificial intelligence. There are hundreds of tools available for building the images and videos using a simple prompt. For content developers who is building the content for marketing, social media, as well as for other business activities, they can use this generative AI tools to create the text, image, and video contents. We can use the generative AI for improving the business operations. So nowadays, if you see from Microsoft, we have the uh, Office 365 Copilot. From Amazon, we have the Amazon Q Business. So there are many generative AI enabled tools available for the business users. We can also use these generative AI services inside the other applications which we use for quality control, visual inspection, as well as document processing. So generative AI services are now available in Amazon Cloud services as well. So in Amazon Cloud, we can build your own generative AI services. You can either use the base models provided by Amazon, and then fine tune these models using the services such as SageMaker or Amazon Bedrock, or you can create a machine learning model or generative AI model using this tools from the scratch. So there are Amazon computes, then Amazon models, as well as the AI services available for the users to build the generative AI solutions. So there are proprietary models available from Amazon to build or to generate the various types of contents. So you can use or you can explore the models catalog from the Amazon Bedrock, and you can explore those models for free in the Amazon Bedrock. We are now using these generative AI services in different domains. Basically, we are using them in education, healthcare, life science, finance, and banking. So for healthcare industry, we can use this generative AI services to create personalized medical prescriptions, medical imaging, and digital scribe. Suppose if I have to create the patient's treatment document or report, we can use the generative AI service, which can generate the report for the patients by evaluating the treatment documents. We can also use this to create a personalized prescriptions for patients. So without consulting the doctor or without uh, directly contacting this doctor, we can also create our own health summary or health prescriptions for the users. So we can also use this in the life science, like for discovering new drugs, the protein folding prediction, and synthetic biology. So many research students are now using this generative AI services to discover new drugs and medicines, which is part of their studies and research. We can also use the generative AI services in banking and finance domain. We can use the anomaly detection kind of services to identify the fraud detections or fraud attacks, portfolio management, and debt collection. So we can simplify the task of the banking processes using this generative AI because it can analyze the customer data and generate the portfolio, create a debt collection report, and so on. We can also use this in the manufacturing industry for designing this product, process optimization, preventive maintenance, and material science. For retail, we are using it for pricing optimization, virtual try-ons, store layout optimization, product review summaries, and more. As you know, nowadays, most of the online shopping websites are providing the virtual try-on option. So you can take a product and you can suppose if it is a product that you want to buy for your home, you can try this product, how it looks at your home. So you can try this using a virtual environment. Also, you can provide the product reviews, and the 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 e-commerce websites are now analyzing this product reviews and creating summaries and generating the ratings for these products. For media and entertainment, we are generating the contents, mostly the video and image contents. virtual reality, and news generations. Now, we will see how generative AI is important for us. As we have discussed earlier, we are using the generative AI in different domain. But what are the different use cases or features of generative AI? We are using it for summarizing this content. We are using it for generating some new content. We are using this in code generation and also for answering the questions in a Q&A scenario, like creating the virtual assistants like chatbots. Suppose if I have to create a summary of a lengthy text, we can use the summarization feature of generative AI models. So if you are using the Amazon models or OpenAI models or the DeepSeek or Google's Gemini models, so most of these generative AI models now providing the summarization feature, you can provide a very lengthy text and create a simple summary of those texts. Now we are using this feature in the news websites. So instead of reading the complete news content or article, we can just read the summary of that particular article. So now some of these news websites are providing this AI tools which can summarize the lengthy news contents or articles and provide the summarized report or summarized content of that news content. We can also use this for content generation, basically for generating the images, text, video, and code. We can use the generative AI services. If you are a developer, you must be familiar with the tools like a GitHub Copilot or Amazon Q or Tab9, which can be used to generate the code based on your prompt. It is also possible to generate the image and text contents using the generative AI models. So nowadays, you can see the Google's Gemini model is allowing the users to create the text as well as images based on the prompt given to it. We can also create these content generation feature to create the product descriptions. Suppose if you are planning to market a product, so you need to create a product description or marketing content for your product. You can use the content generation feature of the generative AI models. We can use the code generation feature of generative AI that is basically used by the developers to generate the code. Now, the generative AI models that we use in the developer productivity tools like a GitHub Copilot, Amazon Q Developer, Tab9, Blackbox AI, all of them are supporting various languages and frameworks. Suppose if you are a Python developer, you can describe the project requirement in simple natural language and it can generate the complete application code for you. Not only the backend API applications, it can also generate the front-end user interface for JavaScript, browser-based applications, mobile applications as well. Not only the application code, but also the infrastructure code like a Terraform templates or cloud formation templates, the Azure ARM templates, the SQL scripts, or also the Kubernetes and Docker deployment manifest files, all can be generated using this generative AI's code generation tools. Now, even we can use the generative AI for creating the virtual assistants Basically, they are used for the question and answer scenarios. So you can ask any questions to the virtual assistants or chatbots, which will be answering your questions. So when you use the generative AI models in virtual assistants, they basically able to answer the questions based on the pre-trained data, because every model is basically pre-trained with the millions of informations available on internet. So if the question is outside the context or outside the knowledge scope of this model, then it can now use the uh, technologies like agents or RAG to connect to the external sources to fetch the data and generate the appropriate result. For example, if you want to create a virtual assistant or chatbot for the employees that can answer the uh, questions on employees' internal policies or organization policies. Since the organization's policy is not a public information, you can explicitly train the model or create a vector database to and connect it as a data source for your generative AI models. So whenever you ask a question, the generative AI model will connect to the external data source and generate the answers based on the content of that external source. So now we can enhance the capabilities of generative AI models that we use in the question and answer scenarios by using the retrieval augmented generation concept or fine tuning or by using the agents. While using this generative AI services in our organization, we also need to evaluate the benefits as well as the risk of generative AI services. Basically, the risk involves the regulatory requirements, social risk, and privacy concerns. Because before we adopt the generative AI services in our organization, we have to do a check whether it meets all the regulatory compliance of the organization, whether any of the regulatory requirements are not satisfied if you implement this generative AI services. And also, we need to identify the social risk while implementing this generative AI services. And also, we need to ensure the privacy of the organization data and the users data, because that is one of the major questions that we see in today's world while using this generative AI services, because the data that we send to the generative AI models, will they use the data for some training purposes, or will they use the data to fine tune these models? Understand the privacy policy of the models, because every model provider will have a privacy policy which clearly describes how they handles the customer data and organization data. Most of the organizations who provide these generative AI models nowadays not going to use this customer data or organization data for retraining or enhancing the models. So, but they can collect the telemetry and the prompt to evaluate the feedback of the customer, and based on this feedback it can improve the models. So understand the privacy concerns of generative AI models before you implement them inside your organization. But the benefits of using this generative AI services, basically personalization of customer interactions. Nowadays, generative AI is mostly used for creating the virtual assistants personalized assistance for the users. We can also create new contents, which is uh, not a license base, because the contents which are generated by the generative AI models are completely new and not bound with any license. So you can use them inside your organization. For example, inside your organization, you have to show some products images, or you have to generate some background images. So you don't need to worry about the licensing of those uh, contents, because they are completely new content generated by the generative AI models. And it is easy to adapt pre-built models to business use cases, because now most of the model providers like OpenAI, Microsoft, Llama, Google, Amazon, all of them are providing the pre-trained models. And these models we can easily integrate within our applications just by installing the SDK for those particular languages and models. So you can easily start using these models without doing any customizations, or without doing any complex operations, because integrating this generative AI models is can be done using a simple API calls. Productivity gains through automation. So now, if you are a developer, we can understand by using this generative AI tools, we can enhance the productivity of the developers. Okay. Previously, if you take a month to create an application, the same product can be now created in just a 5 minutes with the help of generative AI services. And also, these generative AI services that is that can be used for generating the code is always following the best practices and standards, because the models are trained with the code with the best practices and the application standards. Also, you can use these generative AI models within the end user applications to help the users to use the applications very effectively. For example, if the user wants to write an email, instead of writing a new email manually, they can just use the generative AI solutions to write the mails. Or if they want to create a PowerPoint presentation, they can use these generative AI tools to create the PowerPoint presentations. So now we can reduce the time required for creating those contents. Like if I have to create a PPT, usually it may take a day to complete the PowerPoint presentation creation. But with the help of generative AI, we can simply create that in just a 10 to 15 minutes. So in the first module, we have discussed what is generative AI and the importance of generative AI. But in the module 2, we are discussing how to plan for generative AI project. In this module, we will learn the technical foundations and terminologies related to the generative AI, evaluating the risk and mitigations when using the generative AI, and exploring the steps to planning a generative AI project. First, we need to understand what are the technical foundational concepts we have to understand for using generative AI. Basically, there are a couple of terminologies or technical terms that we use in generative AI, like foundation models, pre-training, transformer architecture, tokens, word embedding, and context. The foundation models basically means a pre-trained model, because these models can be directly consumed inside our application. These models are already pre-trained with the millions of data available on internet. Because if I have to use a model within our application, it needs to be trained with a training data set. So these foundation models provided by the model providers like OpenAI, Amazon, Microsoft, Llama, or some other providers, they are providing one or more generative AI models that can be used for various uh, use cases. Some of them may be text generation models. Some of them can be image generation models. Some of them can be used for embeddings generations. So depends on the foundation model's type, the use case may vary, and these foundation models are pre-trained with the millions of data available on internet. And if we have to implement a generative AI solution, we can simply use or consume this generative AI models within our application by simply consuming them via the APIs or SDKs. The second terminology that we need to understand is pre-training. As I have mentioned, the foundation models which are pre-trained means they are already trained with a large amount of data which is available on internet. So basically the models are simple algorithms which is then trained with a large amount of unlabeled data, and the models which are generated as part of the training process will have the knowledge about this data. So it is not only the algorithm, but also it remember the data that it learned in the training phase. So for creating these foundation models, we use pre-training, or the pre-training process is used to create the foundation models. Transformer is another important terminology because most of the generative AI models or foundation models that we use is following the architecture called transformer. So in the transformer architecture, we are uh, using the encoder and decoder, which is paying attention to multiple places or multiple positions in a given text. So the older architectures which we use, like a GAN or a VAE or some other, they are basically processing the text sequentially. But in the transformer architecture, they are capable to process the text parallelly, which means if you are providing a very lengthy text as a prompt, it can efficiently handles that data because it can process multiple places of the given text parallelly. And this is much memory efficient compared to the previous models or previous architectures, and can be trained parallelly with the help of GPU systems. So when we provide a prompt to a model for generating a content, it's called the input or prompt. So prompt is nothing but a text instruction given to a model. So it can be a foundation model or it can be a, customized model. But to generate some contents using this generative AI models, you always need to provide a input. Basically, this input is called a prompt. It could be a question, it could be a request, it could be some paragraph which describes your requirement, can be anything. So whenever the model receives the input or prompt from the user, the transformer architecture will evaluate the input text and then start generating the response accordingly. Tokenization and encoding is the process that happens inside the model while we make the request. A token is a term that we use to represent a single word. A single word means it can be a single character word, two character word, or multi-character word. But if sometimes a very lengthy word can be split into multiple tokens. So simply I can say that a token means one or more group of characters. So max to 4 or 5 characters per tokens. So the number of tokens supported by the models in a single request and response is defining the context window size or context size of the model. Different models provides different token size limit. Suppose if you go to the OpenAI's models, now they have different models like a GPT-5, GPT-5 mini, GPT 4.1, GPT 4.0, GPT 3.5. There are different models, and the context size supported by these models also varies. These tokens, the number of tokens in a prompt is used to calculate the cost of that model. Suppose if you are consuming a model, when we make a request, it identifies the number of tokens used inside the request and the number of tokens used in the response to identify the total cost of that particular request. Internally, every word or token is represented in numeric format. It's called a token encoding or embedding. So inside the uh, uh, transformer architecture, the encoding helps to organize or to arrange the words in a particular order or particular format. Word embedding is another concept that we use in generative AI models, basically the transformer based models, because internally the models are handling the data in a numeric format like called the embeddings. So it is a multi-dimensional vector that is representing the position of the text inside a vector storage. So typically this is used in RAG-based applications. A RAG-based application means a retrieval augmented generation based application. In a RAG-based application, we can attach an external data source as a knowledge base for your pre-trained models. Suppose if you are asking a question about the organization's internal policy, the, the foundation model may not be able to answer that question because these foundation models are trained with the millions of public data available on internet, not on the private data. So the model is unaware about the uh, organization's policy. But what if you want the model to respond to the questions related to the organization's internal policies? Then there are two options you have. Either you have to retrain the model with the new data, or you have to create a custom knowledge store or vector store so that whenever you ask a question to the generative AI model, it can search and find the matching informations from the vector store. So, whenever you make a request inside this model, suppose that when you make a request to this model is supposed to generate this answer for your question. Since the answer is not present in the pre-trained knowledge or pre-trained memory, the framework which you are using, maybe it's a LangChain or semantic kernel or some other. So that is a framework that you are using that will receive the request from the user or the prompt from the user and then connect to a vector database. This is the vector database, which is populated from a set of documents. So this vector database is storing the data in a vector embeddings format, which is the numeric format or numeric representation. So that is identifying the position of a particular text content. So why we are generating or why we are using this embeddings? Because inside the vector storage, we need to place the text content. So this is our document, which may be a policy document. The policy document content we have to place inside the databases using the embeddings, because inside this database we store the text content as well as its corresponding embeddings representation. Whenever you make a request to the framework or the application, it makes a search inside the database for the matching embedding documents, and when it returns the search result, that search result is combined with this model with the query, and then it is going to generate the final result. So now the model is using the result from the database, the search result from the database, along with this query to generate this answer. But how the search operation is happening inside this database? It is with the help of embeddings representation, because inside this database, we are placing the data based on the embeddings vector positions. So it's a multi-dimensional vector that is typically used to create the numeric representation of the text content. So basically, the embeddings models can provide an embeddings with the vector dimension of 1536 or 3076 dimensions. That means the number of dimensions in a vector will be 1536 or 3072. Okay, so simply what you need to understand, it is a numeric representation of the text that is used to place your text in a vector database, and it is helping you to search and find the matching answers for a particular user request. And those search results are used to generate the final answer using the generative AI models. And context is another terminology that we commonly use, because context is very, very important while creating the chatbots. Because whenever you make a request to a generative AI model, the generative AI model is answering the questions not only based on the query, but also it consider the context informations. So context information simply means the previous chat history, like what you are talking about. Okay, what are the points we have already discussed? Okay, and who is talking currently, or who is the user. So all these informations are required to answer that particular question. So maintaining the context information active is very, very important, because if no context information is maintained, the model cannot understand, or model cannot answer the questions properly. For example, for maintaining this context, we typically use the conversation history. So conversation history means whenever user asks a first question, for example, you can see the first question asked by the user is, what's the best place in Seattle to visit? And the model can generate an answer for it. So this is the response which is generated by the model. That is, it's saying the Columbia Center offers breathtaking views of the city skyline. So the first request is over here. So after sending this response, the first request is over, which means the communication to the generative AI model is over. Whenever you make a second request, it cannot remember what you have discussed earlier. Means it cannot remember which question you have asked. It cannot remember what answer you have received. But suppose if you are using a chatbot and you are asking a second question like that, will this be fun for children? So in this question, you are using a word this, but this means what? So this we are using in a natural language conversation to refer something which we have previously discussed. But unfortunately, models are APIs which cannot maintain the state by default. So whenever you complete a conversation, it forget everything from the memory. So it cannot remember about the previous question you have asked. You have asked something about the place and it has responded with the place name, but it forgot about that place name. But when you ask a second question, how it will reference or refer to that previous location? So for that, you have to maintain this conversation history. For that, whenever we make a request and generate the answer, that conversation information we store in an array, or maybe in a persistent storage like a databases. And whenever you make a new request, we will be adding the previous conversations plus the new prompt. So every time we make a new request like this, means we are including the previous conversations information along with the new prompt or along with the new question, so that the model will understand, okay, we have discussed about this earlier and now he is asking a question related to this previous content. Okay, this is how we maintain the context information. So in this lesson, we have discussed about the common terminologies that we use in Gen AI, that is foundation models, pre-training, transformers, tokens, word embeddings, and context. In the next lesson, we are discussing the planning a generative AI project. In this, we will understand how to define the scope for a generative AI project, how to select a model, adapting a model, and use the model. The first phase or the first step in planning for a generative AI project is defining the scope. The scope means whether we actually need a generative AI project for our customers, whether we can do this project or will we get any benefits of using this project or while implementing this generative AI in this project? So we have to identify the scope by asking these questions. So we need to ask questions like, do our customers want this? Suppose if the customers does not require generative AI, then why we have to implement that? So first, we have to identify whether the customers actually require that. If yes, then we have to ask another question regarding the revenue, that should our organization do this? Because if I'm spending a lot of money to do the research and the implementation of the generative AI in our project, will this provide any benefit? Will it gives the revenue? So if I'm not getting any benefit on implementing this generative AI project, then what is a scope? So we have to identify whether we will get the revenue or benefit on implementing this. Then next thing we have to think is, can our organization do this? Suppose for implementing some Gen AI projects, we may have to spend millions of dollars, but will this actually worthy for our organization? Because if the organization is a small or medium business organization, and if the cost is not affordable, we cannot do that. So we need to identify whether this organization can accommodate this or whether the organization can do this. Because for implementing this AI projects, they may have to spend a lot of money, which may be outside the budget of that organization. So that's, we have to identify first the scope of this project, whether our customers actually need this, whether we will get any benefit on implementing this, and whether the cost is inside the budget, or whether the feasibility, the financial feasibility, we have to identify whether the cost is can be handled or not. The second step after identifying the scope is selecting a model. We have discussed about the pre-trained models as well as the foundation models. But sometimes in some scenarios, we cannot use this pre-trained models because these pre-trained models have a lot of limitations. What is the limitation? First of all, there is a cutoff date for its knowledge. For example, if you go to a generative AI model and ask a question about an incident which has happened yesterday or the last week, it will say that as per my knowledge till this particular date, I don't know about this information. Because every pre-trained model is trained with the internet data available till a particular date. For example, if you are going to ChatGPT or any other service, maybe I can go to this. Here, this is also a Gen AI service or Gen AI tool, and I can ask a question about the mm, uh, the incidents which have happened in the last week. Maybe I can ask a questions where or who won the last Asia Cup 2025 match. So I'm asking a question because there is a tool, web search is enabled, so it may go to internet and search and find the answer. But I'm just disabling this web search and try to identify this answer. Let's see whether it will. So here you can see I don't have information about the Asia Cup 2025 match held in Dubai, as my knowledge is current only through the end of January 2025, which means here the knowledge cutoff date is January 2025. So if you ask anything which has happened after January 2025, it cannot answer those questions. So this is one limitation of generative AI models. Secondly, suppose if you ask a question about a particular person or organization's private information, it cannot answer that question. For example, suppose if I am asking a question about Synergetics internal employee reimbursement policy. So I am asking a question, what is the employee reimbursement policy at Synergetics? So you can see it simply says, I don't have access to specific information about Synergetics employee reimbursement policy, because the employee reimbursement policy is actually a private and confidential information to this particular organization. Okay, to this particular organization. So if you ask any questions related to the private information for that particular user or organization, it is simply say I don't have access or I don't know about the user specific or organization specific data. So these are some limitations of generative AI services or generative AI models. But how we can use them to create a chatbot which can answer about the employee's reimbursement policy? Or if I have to implement a chatbot which can answer the latest informations, for that we need to use some techniques. So typically we use the fine-tuned models or RAG-based approach for updating the model knowledge. So we can either use a pre-trained model, means if I have to implement some generative AI concept for summarization. Okay, so my use case is just to summarize the content. Okay, I'm not going to generate any user specific or organization specific data. My use case is just to summarize the content or evaluate the feedback of the customer. So that's it. Okay. So for that, I can simply use a pre-trained model, because every pre-trained model has the capability of summarizing the content and also evaluating the sentiment of the user feedback. But if I have to implement a chatbot which can answer the user's questions about the reimbursement policy, about the latest informations, I cannot go with the pre-trained model, because pre-trained model limitations I have already explained, right? The knowledge cutoff date and the lack of private and confidential data. So such cases, we can go with a fine-tuned model, which means we take a base model or foundation model and then update this model with the new data and then retrain them. We will retrain the foundation model with the new data or the custom data and then create a new version of the model. So that new version of the model or updated model is called a fine-tuned model. So now we have to select whether I have to go with a pre-trained model or I have to go with a fine-tuned model or custom model. It depends on the use case. For example, if my use case is just a summarization, or my use case is just to create uh, or analyze the sentiment of the user feedback, then there is no need to go for a fine-tuned model, means customized model. I can go with the pre-trained model. But if I am using this in a chatbot where I have to provide the user specific or organization specific data, then I have to go with a fine-tuned model. So this is very important. After you have decided, okay, we have decided to go for a generative AI project. We have identified the scope of the project. Secondly, we have to select an appropriate model. Yes, we have decided which model is suitable for our project. The next is adapt this model. So when we select a model, we have to make sure that the model is applicable and usable in your project. So for that, we need to fine tune, or you have to optimize the model by using prompt engineering and also fine tuning. Means sometimes you have to customize the model's capabilities by using prompt engineering. For example, basically when you ask a question, whenever you ask a question to this model, model is capable to answer any question. Model is capable to answer Model is capable to answer any question that you ask. For example, if I ask a question, okay, so how the network systems are working. So I'm just asking a simple question related to the networking. You can see this is answering the question about the networking. But understand, if I'm asking this question to a chatbot of an organization, and the organization's network system data is confidential, because how the network is set up, that information is confidential. So I have to tell the model, if somebody is asking about the organization's network or firewall configurations, do not answer that questions. So how I can tell the model, or how I can fine tune the model that it should not answer any questions related to the network? For that, we use prompt engineering. For example, I can provide some system instructions like you are a chatbot that answers only user specific questions. Any questions related to network security, then storage, do not answer those questions. Okay. Or maybe any question related to this, then questions. Instead, reply, I cannot help you on this. Okay, like this. Now I have just set one system instruction. Now you can ask any question, like for example, how far is moon? So I'm just asking a very simple, normal question. It's a simple question. You can see the model is answering that. But now I'm going to ask, okay, what is the network and security configurations applied? So I'm just asking something about the network and security. Can you see it is simply answer that I cannot help you on this, because I have used a pre-trained model, but I have customized the model's behavior by providing an instruction here. So because of this instruction, it is the model is understanding, okay, whenever somebody asks a question related to the network, security, storage, I should not expose that information. I have to say, I cannot answer this question, right? So that's why any other questions I ask, it can answer. But if I ask something about network, security, or storage, it will simply reply as, I cannot help you on this. So this is called a prompt engineering, right? So this is one simple prompt engineering technique I have mentioned, like how to customize the model's behavior. Okay, there are many other prompt engineering techniques available. In our upcoming sessions on prompt engineering, we will be talking about the different techniques of prompt engineering, like using the conversation history, using the few short examples, formatting this request, using the different patterns like a chain of thought or React patterns. So there are many prompt engineering techniques we can apply, but this is a very simple example to customize the model's behavior or model's response for the user question. So prompt engineering is very important whenever you use a model inside your organization, because if you want to control and customize your model's behavior, you have to use prompt engineering. So what are the do's and don'ts for this model? You can define it with the help of prompt engineering. In case if you have to update the model with the new data, then you have to fine tune the model. Suppose if you have selected a pre-trained model, but some of the informations you have to update or you have to upgrade your model with some new data, then you have to use fine tuning. So in fine tuning, you will prepare a data set and then take a foundation model and retrain the model to create a new version of the model. Once you have created and configured the model, then you can use that model inside your solution. So inside your application, you will be able to use this. But yes, we have to consider some uh, parameters, like have you managed all of the responsible AI concerns? Because whenever we use AI solutions, whether it is generative AI or the other AI solutions like a deep learning or machine learning AI solutions, we have to follow some responsible AI principles. Okay, so whether our application is following all the responsible AI principles, how we have managed this responsible AI concerns. Do you have a plan for feedback from users? So suppose if the user is identifying that the model's response, means this automated response coming from the chatbot, is not up to the mark, there is some inaccuracy or irrelevancy in the responses. So how you will collect the feedback from the customer? So whether customer is satisfied or not satisfied. If the customer is not satisfied, then only we can improve the model's knowledge and behavior, right? So for that, what is a plan to collect the feedback from the users? How are you going to track the performance of your models over time? So you also need to continuously evaluate the model for its performance. So how the model is answering the user's questions and how quickly it is answering those questions. All these need to be evaluated. So for that, implement the monitoring services for generative AI solutions. how you are tracking changes to the pre-trained model so you can retrain your fine-tuned model. So that means over the period of time, we need to update the model because we are taking a model, a foundation model. We are taking a foundation model and then we fine tune this model with some new data. But maybe after some days or after some month, we need to again update this model because we are continuously generating some new data or the organization is generating some new data. So we have to continuously update the model according to the data generated in the organization. So how we are planning or tracking those changes or how frequently you are going to update your model. So in the previous lesson, we have discussed how we have to plan for a generative AI project and what are the steps involved in that. And now we are going to discuss evaluating the use of generative AI for your project. So the first thing that we are going to discuss is what are some generative AI considerations. In the previous lesson, in the previous slide, we have discussed about the responsible AI principles. And one of the responsible AI principle is fairness, which means the models should treat all the variables equally with the absence of bias. That means there should not be any bias in the responses. For that, we need to ensure the model is trained without a biased data. Means your training data set should contain the equally balanced data. Okay, suppose if you are planning to use a model for generating some particular type of data or generating the documentation. Suppose if you are using only a particular type of documents for training data, the model will learn only about that. But at the customer side, the customer may be expecting some other type of documentation. But unfortunately, because the model is trained with only a specific type of documentation data set, then it will generate some inaccurate or irrelevant data. So that should be avoided. So when whatever kinds of documents expected by the user, suppose if there are 5 types of documents which are possibly expected by the user or generated by the customer, then we have to train the model with all 5 types of reports or all 5 types of documents, not only one or two type of data. That is fairness. Secondly, privacy. Privacy is a very important point because how the model is going to handle the private information in an organization. It may be a code, it may be the user's information, or it may be the organization specific information. So how the model is going to handle this private and sensitive data. So that you need to evaluate. Evaluate the risk and benefits of using the generative AI, primarily the toxicity, which means whenever we uh, provide or whenever the customer is providing the prompt, we have to evaluate the prompt before it is sending to the model. Whether the whether this model, whether this prompt containing some toxic language or not. So if the prompt is containing some toxic language, it has to be blocked. Similarly, when the model generates a response, the response contains any toxic content or toxic data or not. If there is a toxic content in the response or request, it has to be blocked. So that we have to configure in our applications. Secondly, how it is handling the hallucinations. Because if you are asking the generative AI model to generate the content, but the context data which you have provided is is causing the hallucinations, because it may confuse the model. Because of these confusions, the model may generate invalid and inaccurate data. So how to handle such scenarios? You have to consider that. Third is the intellectual property usage. So how the model is going to use the intellectual property of the organization. It may be a code, or it may be a user data, or it may be some other information. So you have to have a proper guideline, and you also need to evaluate how it is going to handle this data. Suppose in some organizations cases or some applications, you need to follow the organization's regulatory conditions, like the data should not go to the cloud, or the data should not go to should not go outside the region or outside the country. So if there are some regulatory conditions need to be followed, then you need to evaluate how it is going to be handled inside your application. Plagiarism and cheating. So sometimes the models may generate a data which is exactly matching with the training data set. Okay, for example, we know that the models are trained with the millions of data available on internet, and some of those data may be a licensed data. But suppose if I am asking the model to generate an of image of an apple, or image of a boy, or image of some other object. But what if this model is generating an image which is exactly matching with an image in the training data set? And if that is a licensed one, then it creates a problem, because you, without giving a credit or without the consent of the data provider, if the model is trying to generate a data which is matching to the training data set data, and if the user is going to use that, then it may create a problem, because there can be licensing issues on those content. So how it is going to handle this situation, that you have to evaluate. Disruption of the nature of work. So typically when we use the generative AI inside our day-to-day workflows or day-to-day activities, there will be some replacements, because some of the task which is done manually will be converted into automated. So in that scenario, the nature of this work will be interrupted, or it will be changed. So how it is going to be handled? Because the typical flow of execution is now changed. Some of the processes are now automated. So that we have to evaluate while implementing the generative AI solutions in our applications. The last and final module is about building a generative AI ready organization. In this module, we will see the preparing your organization for success, and taking an action. Preparing your organization. In this, we have to understand what a generative AI ready organization looks like, and start with your leaders and prepare your employees. So first of all, when we plan to implement generative AI in an organization, so how it is going to be? So take a people first approach to deliver business value and remain competitive. So we have to equip the people to use this generative AI solutions. Okay. So if the people are not uh, compatible enough to do this or to use this solutions, then you cannot bring a business value for that. Provides your employees with the training and resources. So you have to equip these employees with the knowledge of on generative AI solution. Because if I have seen in some of our recent trainings for some organizations, we saw that people are using the Microsoft 365 like Word, Excel, PowerPoint for long time, and Microsoft Copilot is enabled inside their Microsoft 365 account. That is, Microsoft 365 Copilot is enabled. So this Copilot can generate the documents, can generate the slides, can create emails or write emails for the users. But because the people are not aware about the generative AI tool, they are not using that feature. They are still writing the mails manually. They are still generating the presentations manually. But instead, they can use the generative AI tool to fasten their work. But they are not aware about that because these employees didn't get any training on how to use that generative AI tool. Okay, so first we have to provide the training to the employees of the organization how to use this generative AI tools and provide relevant materials for practicing it. Invest in a change of culture with a focus on transformational leadership. So invest in a change of culture with a focus on transformational leadership. So in your organization, you have to start building the AI culture from the top level. That means you have to start with the leaders. Then make them aware about the importance of generative AI solutions and the benefits of generative AI solutions. Then equip the lower level employees. So for that, you need to start with the leaders, drive the leadership alignment, provides your employees with the training and resources, discover the organization readiness, and understand the impact of change on employees. So that means you need to start uh, educating the leaders about the impact of generative AI, and that can go through the different levels and reach the lower level employees. Prepare your employees. Start by explaining what generative AI is. That means you have to educate them about generative AI and its features. Address the concerns about the job security and explain how generative AI can create new job opportunities. So you need to educate the employees about the job security because most of the people are still confused about the job security if whether the generative AI will replace them or not. So I have seen while developing the GitHub Copilot sessions, that is the developer productivity tools for developers, they are thinking that developers are now not required to build the applications. So that is exactly wrong because the developer productivity tools like GitHub Copilot or Amazon Q, they are not going to replace the developers. They are just helping the developers to speed the development process. Because generative AI applications may generate incorrect contents as well. To validate, verify, and implement them, you still need the developer who have a good knowledge on that particular technology. For example, if I am planning to create a .NET application, I can use the developer productivity tools like Amazon Q Developer or GitHub Copilot. But whether the code generated by the AI tool is correct or not, how I'll validate it? If I don't know the .NET, I cannot do that. So developer is still required. It is just fast, simplify and fasten up the job of the developer. That is that we have to tell to the employees who is going to use the generative AI solution. It's not going to replace anyone. It's going to simplify their tasks. So you have to address the concerns about the job security and also explain how generative AI can create new job opportunities. Because now there are a lot of job opportunities on prompt engineers or generative AI engineers, right? So because now we have to integrate generative AI solutions inside our application. So that creates a new job opportunities. Discuss the potential benefits of generative AI for your company. So what are the benefits you get when you implement generative AI in your organization? Encourage employees to provide feedback, means provide or encourage the employees to provide their feedback on implementing generative AI or using the generative AI. Emphasize the importance of continuous learning and adaptation in the face of new technologies. First of all, prepare your employees. Start by explaining what generative AI is. Means you need to educate them, or education is the strongest tool because you have to educate them about the generative AI and its benefits. Generative AI are just large machine models. Okay, instead of models focusing on a specific use case, it considers huge pieces of information. So these generative AI large language models can do lot of tasks. Okay, so it's not going to be focusing on a single task. Okay, it's not just summarizing data. Okay, it can do a lot of things. So you have to educate the employees what are the different capabilities of these generative AI models, how to use them. Address the concerns about the job security. So as we have discussed earlier, we have to educate them about how to use them, how uh, it can help them to simplify the work and fast up the work. Discuss the potential benefits of generative AI for your company. That is, use generative AI to automate the task, improve the customer service, increase the efficiency, and reduce the cost. Because while implementing the Gen AI, it can automate a lot of tasks, improve the customer service, increase the efficiency, and reduce the cost. Use generative AI to create new products and services, improve marketing campaigns, and increase revenue. So as we have discussed earlier, so we can generate a lot of new contents using this generative AI. So now most of the marketing team members are using the content generated by uh, generative AI, maybe for creating the product descriptions, the slogans, as well as the images for the marketing campaigns. So all these can be now done very simply by using this generative AI. Organizing for success. So these are some simple tools to understand how to organize or how to implement the generative AI in the organization. What are the points to consider? Positioning the teams for success in generative AI by collaborate with expert in the field. So, because experts can provide valuable guidance and advice on everything from the data preparation and model selection to testing and validation. So, bring the expert in the field so that they can guide what kind of data to be used, how the data need to be prepared, how to validate the data, which model to be selected, how to do the training, and how to do the validation. And then focus on data quality and availability. Yes, for training these models, suppose if you are planning to do a fine tuning for customizing this model, we have to provide the data set. But data set simply does not mean simply a huge volume of data. The data should be valid and uh, uh, the data should be a valid data and with a quality. Because if you are simply including a large set of data which is not necessary for the actual model usage, then it is simply increase the training duration and effort, but there is no impact on the final outcome. So you have to validate the training data set to ensure that you are providing the appropriate data in the training data set. Positioning teams for success in generative AI. That means invest in infrastructure because for building the generative AI solutions, we need a huge computational power. Simply for fine tuning, for example, for fine tuning these models, we need a GPU or NPU based systems. So GPU based systems are very costly and it is very difficult for us to implement that in the on-premise environments. So in the cloud, we can use this GPU based systems because every cloud service provider is now offering GPU based systems, which are mainly used for AI and data and AI based solutions. So we can now spend money on cloud to use this GPU based systems for building the AI solutions instead of purchasing them locally. Second is prioritize security and privacy. Implement robust security measures to protect the data and ensure that the AI systems are transparent and accountable. We have discussed a point about the data privacy, how this model is going to use the intellectual property of the organization. So how the data of the use customers and the organization is handled by the generative AI solutions. So we have to implement the security measures for protecting this organization and customers data. And the AI system should be transparent and accountable. So who is providing the data, what the organization, what the AI solution is doing with that data. So there should be a proper guidance on that. Continuously evaluate and improve. Continuously evaluate and improve the AI systems to ensure that they are staying up to date and performing well. So as we have discussed earlier, after you build and deploy a generative AI solution, we have to continuously evaluate the performance of these models. Suppose at some time, if you identify that the model is not generating uh, accurate data or relevant data, you may have to go back and retrain the model with some more data. So that you have to evaluate continuously. Establish a governance model for the generative AI, because there should be transparency and accountability on using this generative AI services. We have to clearly define the responsibility and accountability of the system. That means who is responsible for handling this data, or how this model is going to handle this data. So the responsibility and accountability should be clearly defined, and provide the mechanism for users to challenge and address the decisions it makes. Next is ethical principles and guidelines. The AI system should be designed and used in accordance with the ethical principles and guidelines such as privacy, fairness, non-discrimination, and transparency. Because simply means the AI solution should follow the ethical principles, that is responsible AI principles of generative AI. Okay, so that is, they are simply privacy, fairness, non-discrimination, and the transparency. Independent oversight and regulation. This could improve regulatory bodies in industry associate and ethical review boards. So you have to evaluate the rules and regulations, governance of these organizations, because when you implement the generative AI solutions, it should not violate the regulatory compliance of the organizations. So you can appoint or you can involve the regulatory bodies, industry associations, and ethical review boards to evaluate that. User education and empowerment. Educate and empower the users on the AI system to use it responsibly and to understand its limitations. You have to provide proper guidance and education to the customers who is using that application, like what are the things this application can do with AI, and what are the things it cannot do AI with the AI, and also how it is going to use, how the users need to use this generative AI based solutions. And finally, the data privacy and security. This could involve the measures such as encryption, access control, and regular data audits. So basically, the security policies, like we need to encrypt the data before sending and receiving the data to the models, implement proper authentication and authorization, and also do regular data audits for data privacy and security measures. So that's it in this session. So in this session, we have discussed about the generative AI, its importance, the technical terminologies in generative AI, and also how to plan for implementing a generative AI solution in an organization. So we have discussed these points. So now if you have any questions, you can post your questions in the chat. I'll try to answer your questions. If anyone have any questions, I request you to post your questions in the chat. So there is a question how one should a beginner start its journey as a cloud AI expert. So if you are new to generative AI, you can start exploring the free courses offered by AWS or Azure. So in this case, the AWS is offering free courses on Skill Builder. You can go to the AWS Skill Builder website, and there are many free courses on generative AI. You can start with those because it's starting with the very basic fundamental concepts of AI, including the machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI. And then you can go for the AI practitioner certification, which is the foundational certification for AI. And then you can go for the advanced AI certifications, associate level certification on AWS. The same is available for Azure also. You can start with the Microsoft Learn. You can search for the courses or learning path for the AI, and you can give an exam on AI fundamentals, that is AI 900 certification, and then go for the AI engineer certification. What is the best course to start for a 10-year experience non-coder to switch the career? Okay, so if you look into the certification catalog of AWS as well as Azure, you can see there are many AI based solutions or certifications available, like Microsoft 365 Copilot certifications, uh, data and engineer certifications. So even if you are not a coding means developer, you can still go and use the generative AI solutions like DP 100 or MP certification. There are many Copilot based certifications available on Azure, as well as in AWS also. You can see the generative AI based certifications. So check the certification catalog in Azure as well as in AWS, or our team can help you to contact our sales team, so they can help you to identify the best suitable course for you. So prompt engineering, I have mentioned. Yes, prompt engineering is a technique of writing effective prompt. Now, there are many organizations have prompt engineers, because when you build generative AI based applications, how to craft the effective prompt. You have to know the tips and tricks of creating the effective prompts for a particular type of application. So based on the organization and the projects that they use, you have to uh, uh, craft the prompt. Okay, so that is also a job opportunity that today the organizations have. Okay, so I think there is no more questions. So thank you for everyone for joining this session. Now we are winding up this session. Thank you. Have a good weekend.